peace.
All right, let's talk about the Trump agenda. President-elect Trump's mass deportation operation is set to begin as early as Tuesday. Obviously, the details still being hammered out. He told me he plans to start by focusing on undocumented immigrants with criminal histories. Do you support the raids that are expected to take place this week in major cities?
We have a broken immigration system, and we certainly need to fix it, and fix it in a comprehensive and bipartisan manner. That should begin by making sure we secure the border, and House Democrats have made clear that we are ready, willing, and able to work with the incoming administration to get that done in a bipartisan manner. With respect to undocumented immigrants, what America needs is for the incoming administration to focus on violent felons, not breaking up families.
So you would support removing violent felons first in these raids that are expected in major cities across the country?
I support the current administration and the incoming administration doing what's necessary to ensure the safety and security of communities throughout the United States of America. And that obviously entails focusing on the removal of violent felons who threaten the well-being of the American people.
You heard me just talk with House Speaker Mike Johnson about the price tag that is anticipated to be associated with this mass deportation plan. Leader Jeffries, are you prepared to vote yes to support this plan to pay for this mass deportation effort?
What we're prepared to do is to focus on the issues that matter. And first and foremost, that means driving down the high cost of living in the United States of America. Housing costs are too high, grocery costs are too high, insurance costs are too high, utility costs are too high, childcare costs are too high. America is too expensive. And what we need to do is to drive down the high cost of living and build an affordable economy for hardworking American taxpayers. We haven't seen any ideas, any plans, any bills put forward by our Republican colleagues in the House to get that done. We're anxiously awaiting something to show that they're serious about that effort.
And no decision yet on whether you'll support that mass deportation plan?
With respect to deportation activities, as I've indicated, the administration needs to focus on the removal of violent felons who threaten the well-being of the American people.
Let me get your take on disaster aid, Leader Jeffries. You just heard Speaker Johnson very clearly say that, yes, there may be strings attached, that, yes, it's possible that they will move to try to link it to an increase in the debt limit. Would you vote yes if that were to come before you, if that were the only way you believe to get disaster relief to Californians?
The California delegation in the House has been very clear that they do not support conditioning disaster assistance to the American people whose lives have been overturned as a result of the historic wildfires in California. In the history of this country, we have never conditioned disaster assistance to Americans who are hurting. Why would we do it right now? Here's the answer in terms of why House Republicans are proposing to do just that. House Republicans want to pass massive tax breaks for billionaires and wealthy corporations to benefit the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and to stick the bill with working-class Americans and those in the middle class who they claim to want to support. That is not an effort. That is not a scheme that Democrats will support.
Let me ask you, you said in your floor speech to the 119th Congress, quote, "In a democracy, there's a time to campaign and a time to govern." Is there one issue, Leader Jeffries, you can identify today where you think you can find common ground with Republicans, where you're prepared to work with Republicans?
The American dream has been broken for decades in this country. There are far too many Americans who are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, can't get ahead, can barely get by. And we need to step in, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans, as public servants, to do something about it, to make sure that people can actually pursue the American dream of home ownership, educate their children, have access to health care, and one day retire with grace and dignity. That's the American dream that has been broken for decades. We need to work together to fix it.
There's a lot of question about Democrats' role, speaking of 2024, that Democrats played in allowing President Biden to stay in the race as long as he did. I want to play you something that you said back in February of 2024. Take a look.
Do you think that it's time to pass the baton to a new generation of leadership, or do you think Joe Biden is the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump?
Well, Joe Biden is definitely the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump.
What do you say to Americans who believe you and other top Democrats misled them?
Well, Joe Biden was the incumbent president at the time. He was the candidate at the time, and I supported him at the time, and that was the right thing to do. Based on the incumbent president making the decision that he was going to run. Obviously, things changed in late June and early July. But I think what's most important at this moment is not for us to look backward, but to look forward. Solve problems for hard-working American taxpayers and get things done. That's what the American people want to happen. That's the message that I interpret from the November election. And that's the work that House Democrats are prepared to do to make sure we're improving the quality of life for working class Americans, not the wealthy, the well-off, or the well-connected.
Leader Jeffries, I guess just bottom line, do you believe you had a responsibility to be more forthcoming about what you had seen behind closed doors as it relates to President Biden?
What I saw behind closed doors was a president who was working hard to get things done, to deliver for the American people on infrastructure, on driving down the high price of life-saving prescription drugs, on bringing domestic manufacturing jobs back home to the United States of America. It's important to understand that President Biden inherited 3 different catastrophes on day one: a democracy catastrophe, a public health catastrophe, and an economic catastrophe all at the same time, and worked hard to put America in the strongest possible position moving forward.
Leader Jeffries, very quickly, with President Biden set to leave the White House on Monday, who do you think is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
We're going to work hard as House Democrats to get things done for the American people. We'll have a DNC chair election at the end of this month. We look forward to, of course, working with our colleagues in the Senate and Democratic governors across the country in order to present a vision that is inclusive, that is decisive, and that is anchored in making life better for everyday Americans moving forward. And then we'll put it in the hands of the American people in 2 years.
All right, Leader Jeffries, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you on this very significant Sunday.
Thank you.